Hi, friends. My name is Alyson Gampel, and I work as the Associate Director of Alumni Programs at York. I'm absolutely honored to serve as your host today to share with you the launch of Kaleb Dahlgren's book, Crossroads, My Story of Tragedy and Resilience as a Humboldt Bronco. If you've not already done so, please mute your mics unless you're speaking. Now, I'm here representing the alumni community who stand with Kaleb both in sharing his community's grief and celebrating his success in bringing his story to life through this book. Kaleb, know that there are over 330,000 York University alumni who are very proud of you and who mourn the loss of your teammates. With me today are several special partners who I will call upon to share a few words before we turn it over to you, Kaleb, to share your story with us. First, I call upon Monique Simon-Tucker, a York student studying social work. Mo is one of the co-presidents of BIFSA, which is York University's Black and Indigenous Varsity Student Athlete Alliance. Mo will help us acknowledge the land that we live and work upon. Over to you, Mo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kaleb really goes above and beyond for the York Lions community. Kaleb exemplifies what it means to be a true ally as he continues to self-educate, ask questions, and listen to the experiences of all. Kaleb's kindness, positive energy, and generosity continues to leave me in awe. I will now be doing the land acknowledgement. Today, a land acknowledgement remains a way of recognizing and expressing gratitude to the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis land that you're on. For settlers, the act of performing a land acknowledgement is a very basic and fundamental step towards reconciliation between Indigenous people and settlers. As this event is virtual and we are not all gathered in the same space, I recognize that the following land acknowledgement might not be for the territory that you're currently on. If this is the case, please take the time and responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory you're on and the current treaty holders. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have longstanding relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Tekaronto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nations, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This treaty is subject to the Dish with One Spoon, Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peacefully share and care for the Great Lakes region. I'm grateful for the opportunity to live and work on Treaty 13 land.
Thank you very much, Monique. I'd now like to call upon Jennifer Myers, Executive Director of Athletics and Recreation for York University. Over to you, Jen.
Thank you very much. On April 6th, just over 3 years ago, our nation learned of a devastating accident involving the Humboldt Broncos junior hockey team. I distinctly remember that day, as does an entire nation. The phone call started between many of us because one of our alumni, Mark Cross, was an assistant for the Broncos, and no one really knew if he was on the bus. Then that phone call came, and the heartbreak rushed in, not just for all of the families and communities that had lost loved ones, but for our Lions family, Mark's family, his girlfriend, Molly, and all his teammates. We lost an amazing individual that day. As Coach Harrington says, Mark was the kind of person that did all the little things exceptionally well. He was a leader and an incredible human being. But little did we know that this tragedy would also help us heal and bring joy. Joy in the form of a young man recruited by Mark and signed by Coach Harrington, Kaleb Dahlgren. Mark had told Russ that Kaleb was the kind of leader and player that would fit in at York and make a difference, and that was good enough for Russ. As the aftershock of the accident started to lift, we began thinking not only about how we could celebrate Mark, but how important it was to let Kaleb know that no matter where he was at or how long it took him, we were going to honor our commitment to him to come to York and participate with the team in whatever capacity he could manage. As we started to plan trips out west to attend Mark's memorial and participate in a series of games in his honor, Russ and some of the players made plans to visit Kaleb. And it was those visits that we got our first glimpse of the unbelievable determination and resilience of this young man. We learned very quickly that Kaleb is a strong, committed, and invested individual. And I can tell you personally, it has been such an honor to witness his open spirit, vulnerability, and determination to forge his path and share his story to not only heal himself, but inspire so many. It is clear that from a young age, he has intended to live his life with purpose and make the most of what life handed him. His story documented in this book is a must read. It's a story about transformation, the ability to use tragedy in whatever form it manifests itself to carve out a meaningful path in your life. While we still mourn the loss of Mark and everyone lost and impacted by this tragedy, we were given a real opportunity to heal through the strength and leadership of this incredible young man. Kaleb not only transformed himself during his time at York, but he also transformed us as a Lions family. And for that, we are truly blessed and can't thank him enough.
Thank you very much, Jen. Really appreciate your words for Kaleb. I'd now like to call upon Tara Leithead, who's going to introduce our guest of honor. Tara is an education and social work. Tara is president of the York Sports Council. Over to you, Tara.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. As Alyson said, my name is Tara Leithead, and I'm this year's Sport Council president within the York Athletics and Recreation community. It is with great honor today that I'm able to introduce Kaleb, who is a very close friend of mine. As Jen stated, Kaleb joined our York Lions family in September of 2018. I still remember the first time I personally got to meet Kaleb. Him and his parents walked through the front doors at Tate, and at that time I was working as a client services representative. He was this ray of light and walked in with such a great smile. It was a small moment, but still it's evident that it's a moment in time that I will never forget. Kaleb began his studies at York University and joined the York Lions varsity hockey team that fall. Although he was never medically cleared to play for the Lions, it didn't stop him from being an extremely engaged member of our varsity community. Within the hockey program, he volunteered with Heroes Hockey, a volunteer organization that provides hockey to children within various communities. Among the men's hockey team, Kaleb exemplifies the CROSS acronym and always supports his teammates in everything that they do. He immersed himself in the Lions community and culture as fast as he could. He always made time for everyone. You would pass him in the school hallways, and there Kaleb would be with such a great smile, and he would just take the time to ask you how your day is, something one might think is small but so precious. He joined our York Sport Council team in 2019, and he was there to help and provide ideas in everything that we had planned. For Halloween for Hunger, Kaleb and myself took over 500 cans to the York Food Support Center, an annual food drive our varsity community engages in. And this past year, he also joined BIPSA, an organization that is created by student athletes to better the experiences and lives of Black and Indigenous student athletes to allow critical change to happen. To showcase how well-rounded he is, Kaleb is a 3-time U Sports Academic All-Canadian while studying commerce. Last week, Kaleb was awarded with our prestigious Outstanding Male Graduate Award, the Lions Legacy Award, and the Charles Sonder Cook Award for the 2020 and 2021 school year, for his tremendous contributions he made to the Lions family over the last 3 years. Showcasing his outstanding contributions to the community, he also created and founded Dahlgren's Diabetes, a program that supports children with type 1 diabetes. It is inevitable that he is one of a kind. I'm so blessed to have Kaleb in my life. I cannot emphasize how loyal and humble Kaleb is. He is a shining light. Kaleb's amicable and kind spirit never goes unnoticed. Our York Lions community is honored that we had Kaleb to be part of our family. It is evident and without a doubt that Kaleb exemplifies what it means to be a Lion in everything that he does, showcasing his grit and resilience. To Kaleb, York was a blessing and a new chapter in Kaleb's life. But for us, for our York community, Kaleb Dahlgren, this man was a blessing for us. I hope that by the end of this, you find a way, no matter what, to keep fighting and to learn from Kaleb's sincerest grace, his humility, his selflessness, his respect, and his deposition to continue to keep staying positive and carry that with wherever you go. And with that, Kaleb's new book, Crossroads, allows him to share his message of hope and healing around the world. So thank you for giving me the honor of introducing you, Kaleb. And Kaleb, the floor is now yours.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I got a wave of emotion. Yeah, thank you, everyone. This is absolutely an honor to be here speaking today. And I'm extremely grateful for you guys taking time out of your life and all the kind words. I truly just want to be the best version of myself. And I feel like York presented that. And right now, I know this virtual format is a bit weird and we aren't in person, isn't the same. My hope today is that we can make it close to somewhat a personal experience, that today we're closer than we were yesterday, getting out this COVID storm and resuming back to somewhat normal life. I just want to mention that I hope you enjoy this rink background. For me, it is so much more than just an arena. This background has so much meaning and it's symbolic, honestly, in nature. And yes, it is where you play hockey, and it was where I played hockey, but it's still so much more. It's my second home, where I created and found a lifelong family. It's my favorite arena, actually. This is the Elgar Peterson Arena in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. When I reflected on my time as a Lion and my life, one of the things that I found extremely fascinating is that I was able to intertwine my roots in Humboldt to the new chapter in my life at York University. I crowned my first ever York Die Beauty, where my mentorship program has started in Humboldt. While there were many, well, we were on, I guess, our Mark Cross and Humboldt Strong Tour at the start of the 2018 season. It was a pretty special moment and one that I'll cherish forever. Fast forward to today, and this is where my home and family is linked to our arena, campus, the Lions, and the York community. This arena has presented me the chance to heal, chance to learn, mature, grow, and become the best version of myself. My hope today is to create our own family within this event and have all our diverse backgrounds join together as a team. I think that's so powerful. I'm going to start off with my large thank yous because I'm aware that people have to leave and this is at lunch. So I just want to make sure I thank everyone who has been in my life and who has helped me get to where I am today. So I have a big list. Bear with me. It'll be done faster than you think. So thank you to my family, friends, roommates, teammates, all the student athletes, my friends created on campus, the staff within the men's hockey program, the varsity athletics family, the sport injury clinic team, strength and conditioning, my professors, the student accessibility services, PAWS, student council, BIVSA, Lions H&R and marketing team, York Athletics and Recreation, Dr. Riddell Diabetes Lab, York Alumni, Tate McKenzie staff, My Diabetes, JRF, Heroes Hockey, and York University as a whole, and lastly, but not least, the York community itself. I also want to thank all of you who came to this event today, and all those who I did not mention, but had a major part in my journey as a Lion. I am beyond grateful for all the interactions, the support, and love throughout my time at York University. It really goes to show that it takes a huge community to help one person grow. And I would not be the person I am today without you touching my life in some capacity. Before I get into reading the passage and question and answers, I want to take you on the path of how I ended up writing a book. Lots of people have asked me that question. I feel like today is a great day to explain to you how this all came to be. So in 2019, I actually started doing speaking engagements. And for me, this was out of my comfort zone. I had done some previous work in the past through JDRF and doing some interviews and a couple speeches at events. But this was more about my life and how I was where I'm at today. So it featured me as a type 1 diabetic, me also losing my dad when I was 16, and also my recovery after the Broncos tragedy. So as I was doing this first speech, as you can see in this top corner here, I had a person approach me after and said, "You should write a book." And I absolutely laughed it off. I was like, okay, no, I'm a university student. I'm in my, I guess, first year of university. There's no way I'm writing a book. I don't think that's right. I don't feel comfortable with it. My story isn't that impactful. No way. And he was like, no, you should really think about it. So I brushed it off. I was like, okay, it's nothing. I only did a few more speeches and the response was saying that you should write a book. You should write a book. And that was when it really kind of hit me. I was like, maybe I should be, like, why haven't I ever thought of this? And I really didn't want to. I still said, no, it's not for me. I don't really read, to be honest. I'm not a big reader. I'm going to be straight up with everybody. I'm not the biggest reader ever. I'm not a bookworm. And if you are, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not. And so for me, it was just not the right path, I didn't think. So I thought about it more. And as I kept on continuing, I kept on getting more and more people saying I should be writing a book. I should be writing a book. My life story has so much meaning and could impact others. And so I talked to my agent and I said, hey, like we've been getting lots of people messaging me, DMing me, telling me at speaking engagements that I should be writing a book. Why is that? And he said, well, your story is quite impactful. Like it could touch a lot of people's lives. And I said, well, I don't really want to write a book. I don't feel comfortable. So yeah, no, it's fine. Like take your time. Said, if you do ever want to, let me know. So life progressed and still didn't have the desire. And I ended up receiving an offer from HarperCollins reaching out through my agent. I talked to him and I said, hey, what do you think about this? And he said, I honestly think your story could impact many lives. And my agent's Jeff Loans with Talent Bureau. And he's been an absolute incredible source in my life and someone who I really value and trust. So I took his words with a grain of salt and thought about it, south it, bit some more, and ended up saying, you know what, I'll think about it. So I was in class one day, as you can see here, with Ben and Mark Wilson. And Mark is my roommate. And we were sitting in class at Professor Purchell's lecture. And obviously we like to take pictures. Normally that's not a good student, but we do at the start of class. It was kind of a fun thing that we like to do. And my Professor Purchell was talking. He said, if you want to make a change in the world, it starts with you. And that's when it really hit me. I do want to make a change in the world, and I have lived my life to try to make the biggest impact I possibly can. And with this platform that I was given, I didn't even want, but I was given from the crash, that I wanted to use it for good and create positivity out of it. And so I was sitting in class and I thought, you know what, this book might be a good idea. I talked to Haley Wickenheiser and asked her thoughts because I really value her as a person and look up to her as a role model. And she said, yeah, your story does have an impact and it can change lives. And I talked to a couple of my teammates, talked to my friends, family, and really dove deep into it. And the one part that I was really worried about was if I was ready to write the book. I knew I could write a book. I wasn't that I was doubting my abilities. It was more of if I was like mentally ready for it, emotionally ready to let myself go and be so vulnerable with who I am as a person and what I believe. And it was difficult. And even worried about the Bronco families too. And if they were going to be okay with this or how they were going to receive this information and what their thoughts were too. Because yeah, that was part of my life and it was 1 year, but it still was a very impactful year. And it wasn't a year that you can just brush to the side. I wanted to respect them and have them be aware of the situation. And so there's a lot of factors weighing in. Then on top of that, I was in 5 courses. I was a part of 4 volunteer councils or activities, and really didn't have much time to be writing a book in the first place. So there was a lot of stuff weighing on me. And I ended up meeting with HarperCollins, as you can see here, and signed with them in January 2020. But part of me writing the book was that I wanted to help others. And that was the big part about it. I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And I wrote with the intent to truly help others. So the first one was by donating a portion of the proceeds to Stars Air Ambulance, as we can see up here. They were a part of the Broncos crash shortly after they arrived on scene and helped save lives. They saved lives on April 6th, and they save lives every day. And I think there's nothing more valuable than getting a second chance at life. So if I'm able to donate a portion of these proceeds to even create awareness and also to shed a light and hopefully save someone's life, I think it's all worth it in my eyes. I also wanted to express topics that lots of people don't really talk about in life, such as death, resilience, illness, positivity, and I guess even integrity and heart. And those were some of the topics of the book. And I want to have hope, family intertwined as well, because it's been such a big piece of my life to have those, I guess, have those relationships with people. And I consider lost people to be my family that aren't actually my family. I consider my teammates to be my family. I consider my friends to be family. I consider even York University as a whole to be my family. And I want to treat others how I want to be treated. And that was part of me being a family. And I've lived by that my whole entire life. And so the whole idea was truly to help others. This post, I guess this spot here, I want to give you some brief background before I start reading a passage. This spot here is when I went to heal, where I went to heal after the crash. It really means a lot to me, and it has such a sentiment feeling. It's in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and I definitely could say I reflected, thought about a lot of things. I even thought one of the things I didn't really mention in the book, but I think needs to be mentioned today was just how important it is to have mental and physical health. And one of the base things I reflected on here was, why do people applaud you if you go to a personal trainer, if you're seeing a skills coach or development coach, but why do they give you a weird look if you say you're going to a counselor to better yourself mentally? I really just have a tough time grappling with that, because why wouldn't you want to be the best version of yourself in every aspect? And I'm not afraid to say it. I've used Debbie for sure. And Debbie is an amazing resource for York University. And I don't know why people wouldn't want to find their best self and to grow and to learn and to become even more aware of their situation in life and how they perceive it. So that was one of the things. I've had a mental performance coach my entire life with Kyle McDonald. I started with him as a young hockey player, and he helps out with our team in varsity athletics, men's hockey. And I have no issue saying that. Like, I don't know why everyone has an issue saying that they go for mental performance, or they go when they're easily saying that they go to work out. I think it should be the same with mental performance. So I want to read part of the book, chapter 16. Not gonna lie, this was definitely the hardest chapter of the book. I spent probably, I don't even know how many hours I could say on this chapter. It was by far the hardest, but is a tribute chapter to 16 that aren't here. Also talking about the accident afterwards was difficult too, but this one really hit home because I was remembering the ones who aren't here, the 16, and really trying to dive deep into my emotions and what I took away from them as people, and also where I was in my healing journey and how they shaped me to be the person I am today, and just how grateful I am for our connection, and I guess how I became the person I am due to them. So we'll read chapter 16. It's just want to give you a heads up that one of the deficiencies, injuries, I guess, in my crash was I suffered a traumatic brain injury, and my ability to read is quite slow compared to other people. And I actually have to really, really, really practice to be an okay reader, not even a decent reader or good, like an okay reader. So that's one of my, I guess, me being vulnerable and opening up, is that I may look good at speaking, but I'm not really good at reading, and that's okay. And I think that it's okay to not be good at everything and not to excel at everything, but I do give my best and I do try my best. So bear with me if I make a couple mistakes or if I am a little bit slower than how you would read, but I'll take you on a journey from chapter 16. After you survive a tragedy, it's amazing how much more you notice the little things in life. Everything takes on new meaning. In the weeks after I was released from the hospital, I started to find beauty in places I hadn't before. At the time, I couldn't walk down the street in Saskatoon without someone wanting to stop and talk to me. I'd become a celebrity for all the wrong reasons. It was a lot to deal with, so I sought a quiet place where I'd be able to take a deep breath and reflect. I found it next to the Broadway Bridge. The Saskatoon landmark stretches over the South Saskatchewan River. There's a nice spot on the bank next to the bridge where you can sit down and look across the river at the city as cars pass by overhead. It's a calm and peaceful place, and I found solitude there. This quiet spot gave me space to think about the crash alone. It was an escape, in a sense, even though there was no escaping the reality of what had happened. Maybe it was about finding perspective, more than anything. It was about noticing the beauty in the small things. The Broadway Bridge is a beautiful piece of architecture, with arches that hop across the river like a skipping rock, and trusses that reach the top to support safe passage above. It was built during the Great Depression to provide employment. It was created to help people through difficult times. There are birds on the Broadway Bridge. They perch on the rails along the roadway, resting together until it's time to fly away. Each time I returned to the bridge, the birds would be waiting there, and each time I'd watch them soar into the sky. These are the things I noticed after the tragedy stripped everything else away. The birds, the sky, the breeze on my face, the stars at night, and the stillness of the dark. I noticed the way that light cuts through the clouds and scatters in glistening specks across the water. I'd sit there and think about all the small things that make life's big picture so beautiful. I think about the 29 lives that sat together on a bus on a cold April afternoon, and about all the lives that were connected to us. The people from the front office, the workers in the arena, the fans in the stands. I think about the people of Humboldt, the parents, the kids, the lives that shared the weight of this pain. We were all a team. We were one. I'd watch the birds fly away and think about the lives that remained, wondering where they'd go and what they'd do with their chance to soar away. I look up at the stars and see them sparkle against the endless dark. They were so far away, yet we could still see their constellations. still trace their light, still be guided by their presence. Those images connected with me. They helped me find some sense of hope and purpose in the wake of a tragedy that should have never happened. This is a chapter that should have never had to be written, but it has to be. It will be the hardest one I have to write. I want it to be the most beautiful chapter ever created. I wanted to tell a story of the beautiful lives that were taken away. I wanted to capture every detail of the legacies they left behind. It's impossible, though. There's no way to ball up the enormity of their life, just as there's no way to contain the majesty of the stars. You just let their light find you in the dark and live in their wonder. I have the Broadway Bridge tattooed on my arm. There's a stick and puck on the frozen ice along the river, displaying our bond shared through hockey. The skate marks signify the game we never played, and the scars etched onto my soul. Grass peeks up from the side of the ice, paying homage to the communities we're rooted in. There are 13 birds flying away from the bridge into the sky in a V formation. 13 lives given the gift of future days. They move forward with the path of stars radiating just above. There are 16 of them, forever glowing. There's something so beautiful in a way a single life can touch your soul. There are literally 8 billion people in this world. I'm grateful for the fact that I was able to have such a great connection with 16 individuals who aren't here today and knew them and loved them for who they were. I think it's something so special and something that a lot of people take for granted. What follows is just a fraction of a portrait of the people we lost, an incomplete picture taken from a fragment of their time on Earth, which I was fortunate enough to briefly share. So thank you for joining me on this. And I just want to say, before I do hop into the hot seat and Q&A, I want to say I'm completely comfortable with any questions as I've healed from everything I've gone through mentally, emotionally, and physically. I honestly would not be writing this book if I haven't. And therefore, no question is too harsh or unanswerable. So bring on the Q&A.
Wonderful, Kaleb. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for sharing of yourself and being vulnerable enough to read the chapter from the book, and certainly the whole book is as powerful. So thank you for being brave enough to write the story. It was my honor to read it, and I know many of us are here celebrating this accomplishment, and I'm very grateful for what the reading of this book has brought to ourselves personally. So it's time for questions, as Kaleb said. If you have questions, you're welcome to raise your hand and I'll call upon you. Or if you prefer to write a question, feel free to use the chat area to write a question and I can read it on your behalf. Okay. So I see the first hand up. It's Tara. Tara, I'd like to call upon you for the first question.
Beautiful. Thank you. Hi, Kaleb, again. In your book, you have stated that there are a few sayings that you live by and carry with you in everything that you do. Can you just please let everyone know what they are and kind of what is the significance around them to you in your life?
Oh boy, you want to say the easy questions for number one? Hey, you want a tough one? All right, okay. So for me in life, I've had to learn quite a few things, and I had to learn them at a young age or learn later on in life, which is completely fine either way. But when I was younger, I had to learn the positive over negative. And that's one of the things that I've always found in my life to be a constant, was to find the positive over negative. When I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 4, I really had a difficult time coming to terms and grasp with it. In the book, I write about how I said, I told my parents that you don't love me and why are you hurting me? And I challenged them and I questioned them about how could they love me if they're giving me needles. And I wanted to play hide and go seek, but I didn't want to be found. And it was hard every time they had to give me a needle. And that wasn't just once a day, it was 5 times a day, 4 to 5 times a day as a child. And it wasn't easy for any of us. And so I had to really find the positive over negative in that situation. And the positive was that I still live my life to the fullest and pursue my passions and dreams. And diabetes doesn't have to get in the way. And so for me, that was one of the things I took away, and I've lived with it forever. And so on my hockey stick, you'll see I put a positive over a negative sign, and it's super small. People don't even notice it, but it's just something that I really like to do to demonstrate to always remain positive over negative in all situations in life, because you really have the choice to make a decision. And then the other thing, I guess a couple more I like to use, is control the things that you can control. And I kind of want to use an example of the crash about how I was involved in it and I need to focus on the things that I can control. And for me, that's my attitude, work ethic, how I respond to the situation, what I want to do moving forward, and ultimately how I want to honor those who aren't here. I can't control my injuries. I can't control who is here, who's not. Literally, the person beside me, the person behind me passed away, and it makes no sense. And I lost my roommate best friend. I lost all my teammates who were my best friends. It was difficult, but I had to move forward and find that positive in it. And the positive was that I was still here and I can make the most of my day for them and myself as well. And so I'd focus on the things I wanted to control, and that could be applied to anything, school, work, any aspect in life. And then lastly, to enjoy the grind. For me, I learned that my whole life has technically been a grind, but I had the shirt received by Anze Kopitar sent to me with the LA Kings. He's one of my idols as a hockey player. He's captain on the team, and he's probably the best two-way forward in the NHL, where he takes care of the D zone, takes care of the O zone, and is reliable in all situations. And that's how I try to play my game. I wanted to be a leader on and off the ice, and I wanted to be reliable in any situation I was given. And so he sent me a shirt, and it was their playoff slogan. It said, "Enjoy the grind." And it just stuck with me. And I was in the hospital when I received it, and I thought, this is so my entire life. I've never really had a term to describe it, and this is exactly it. And my entire life has been a grind. I've had to worry about diabetes, being put down by people, being told I'm not good enough, and this was part of it. And my grind at the time was just to heal and recover. And I suffered a fractured skull, a brain injury, puncture wound in my skull, a D11 in my head, so this whole side of my head was shaved off. I road rash, so obviously the balding is helping. But I also suffered broken cervical vertebrae and thoracic vertebrae, and blood clots, ligament muscle damage, nerve damage. So my grind was to get back and to be healthy and to continue enjoying it and to make the most of that grind, because we have it in all different aspects of our life. And this could come into relationships, work, school, athletics, academics, you name it, there's going to be a grind. And it's just to enjoy the process and to make the most of every day, because you don't know when it's your last. So I say those are my three: positive over negative, control the things you can control, and enjoy the grind.
Thanks, Kaleb. And turn it over to Frankie for the next question.
Okay. Hi, Kaleb.
Hi.
So my question is, when you leave York, what legacy do you hope to leave behind for the York Lions community?
You are really just throwing the tough questions at me this morning, or afternoon, I guess. Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. That's good. For me, I guess the legacy I'd like to leave is that you're able to overcome your challenges with the support of a community. And I was a testament of that. Not gonna lie, I first came in, I had injuries that needed to be healed. One of the things was I ended up tearing a ligament in my ankle on our Mark Cross Humboldt Strong Tour, which was a season-ending injury in itself. And so that was another thing I had to overcome. I was able to get skating in December, or I guess end of November, December, to be out there with my diabetes. And I think that it takes a team. I've had to receive support from everybody I mentioned in the thank yous at some point throughout my career at York. I had to receive academic support, mental support, physical support. I really think that as my legacy would be just to know that you can continue making the most of your situation, and to just be the best version of yourself, but rely on people to help you get there. And I've had to rely on people. I've had friends. I've had tons of support from the community. And this isn't just me. Like, I want to say this is not just me. I've been having all the support I could possibly get, and all the belief in me, and presented opportunities that I never would have expected. And I ran with it. And it was to make the most of the whole situation too, because you're only here for a select time of years, usually 3 to 5. And for me, I wanted to make the most of every opportunity I was given, and to really immerse myself into the community of York and York University. So hopefully the legacy is to use all the supports you can possible, and to just try your best to excel in every aspect that you can throughout your time. Good question.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions that people are writing into the chat, and please feel free to submit your questions that way. So I'll read the question from Haley. Haley says, "Wow, Kaleb, thank you for sharing your story. Where do you find strength every day to continue to push forward?"
Thank you. For me, I believe I have internal strength and external strength. And I think it's like very important to have both, because if you don't have that internal strength to keep pushing forward, then it's hard to just rely on the externals, because if the externals are gone, then you're left by yourself and you feel like you're like hopeless and have nothing really to give in this world. And so for me, my internal purpose and drive is to just be, I guess my why is really to help others. I've come to terms with that, and I understood that at a very young age that I want to help others in this world. And that is one of the things that drives me and wakes me up in the morning and gets me excited, is to create those relationships, to have those bonds, to support people through all their challenges, and to be close with them in tough situations and even in the highs and lows. I think it's great to celebrate the wins and losses. And so for me, I want to be as close as I can with people and to leave a positive impact on this world. So those are my two internal drives, would be to help others and to make a positive impact with my time here. And that positive impact can be done in different ways. It can be done through community work, be done through being the best person as an athlete, be done having fun with my friends, or stepping out of my comfort zone and trying something new, or even holding the door open for another person or saying thank you. It's not, doesn't have to be anything big. You don't have to start your own program or write a book, but it could just be the small things. And that was some of the things that I really try to focus on, was being present in the moment and enjoying the small things that life has to offer. And then also my external drive is for my ones who believed in me, to be honest, and to prove the ones who don't believe me wrong too. I think it goes both ways, where I've had people who doubted me that I've wanted to prove wrong. Doctors told me before I attended York that I was going to fail out. They literally told me to take one class and stay at home, because if I went to York and took anything more than a course, I was going to fail. And a testament of that is I haven't done that. And I thought, why not even try? Like, what's the worst that happens? So what? I go to York and I do fail, then they were right. But if I go to York and I succeed, then obviously they weren't right, and I continue to prove them wrong. So I really like that mindset, but it's also to prove the people right, who believed in me right, which have been my parents, York University, for even giving me the opportunity to be a Lion still after this tragedy, knowing that I may never play a game, and also presenting me with opportunities to succeed, such as pause, tutoring, and all different other aspects, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So I want to say that those are kind of my drivers. And then also another external factor is the 16 who aren't here, and to live my life to the fullest for them too, because like I said, your time on this earth can be gone in an instant, and we never know. I learned that at a very young age when I lost my personal trainer and one of my teammates. I was a young teen, not even 11, 12, 13. And just trying to come to grips with that was not easy at all. But it was something where I learned to really find the value in life and how much to enjoy it before it's gone.
Thank
Sorry if you hear my dog.
No worries. My dog might pop in and say hello. Also, even our dogs are inspired by your story and grateful that you're with you. I want to ask a question, and it's an interesting one in the chat from Jennifer. She asks, how scared were you during the crash?
Good question. So I'll tell you right now, I don't remember anything right after impact. So I remember everything leading right up to it. We were on the bus. Guys were getting changed into their suits. I already had my suit on. I was sitting in the aisle seat, row 12, and had my suit jacket on. I was ready to go. I put in my headphones, and then the guys started talking. So I took them out and I started listening, and they were joking around because Nick Solansky's house was on the left coming up. And so then after that, we were all laughing. So I put on my headphones again and turned on my music and pressed play. And I put my head down because I wanted to visualize. I normally visualize before my games around 20 to 30 minutes out from the arena. And for me, I wanted to visualize what plays I was going to do, because we were in the do or die game and our backs were against the wall. So I wanted to be a standout player and be a leader for our team that night. And I was thinking of the plays I'd be doing. So I put my head down, closed my eyes, and that's the last thing I remember, and everything went black. And so upon the impact, I really don't remember anything afterwards. Still, I have a 4-day window where I don't remember a single thing. It's 4.5 days, and it's called post-traumatic amnesia. So I don't really think I was truly scared per se in the situation, because I had no idea. I think afterwards, I was more hurt to find out about what had happened and who was here and who wasn't here, because I still didn't really understand. I guess in the hospital, and I guess well on the scene, the first responder said I was walking around and helping, and I was hunched over and I had no jacket on. And I vividly remember putting on my jacket. So I don't remember taking it off, don't remember helping anyone. And so that was one of the things that I kind of found out afterwards that was a little bit scary. And I guess one of the things that is scary is the fact that I might remember it, but I'm not really truly scared, to be honest. I'd like to find out and remember what had happened and who I was helping, what I was saying. That stuff doesn't really scare me, and it honestly provide me with even more healing, but I'm okay with not knowing too. And I've accepted either situation. So if it does happen, I end up remember it one day, which the doctors think will happen, then great. I'm glad I found out. And if I don't, then I'm happy with that too, because at the end of the day, I'm unable to really control my memory and what I can remember, what I can't remember. But I think that'd probably be the scariest thing, is remembering it. But to be honest, I'm not really that scared.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to read a question that came in from Simone. Simone writes, "Thank you for writing this book. It was amazing." I agree. You wrote that when you were recovering, you weren't really yourself. As student athletes are enduring this lockdown and unable to play sport and struggling to adapt and not feeling like themselves, what advice would you have for them? What are the things you remember your parents doing to help support you through this? What advice do you have really in dealing with this lockdown, I think, where really no one feels like themselves, and that's particularly hard hitting for athletes who are used to a very different life.
Yeah, no, that's great. For me, I was not myself right after the crash based on my brain injury. The severity of my brain injury changed my personality, and I became super sarcastic, ignorant. I was swearing. Every second word was a swear. In our room, I even called our room the trap house, which it was technically a trap house. We were trapped in a room, and there's a lot of people coming in and out, and we couldn't really escape, but we had lots of support. So it was a trap house, but it was a little bit weird. I'd say moving forward to right now, and one of the biggest things is to truly control the things you can control in this time. I know I've touched on it before, but we have an opportunity to reframe our minds. And instead of looking at this in the negative light, looking at it a positive light, and how can we grow as people on and off our court, field, ice. And I really think that's a valuable lesson as student athletes, is to be well-rounded in all aspects. So when we do return to play, that we are our best self, that we are mentally stronger than we were before the pandemic, that we are physically more flexible than we were before the pandemic, that we have better skills, and that we've really worked on these and own up on it, but also that we have strong relationships outside of sport, that we have a path that we want to go in life, and that we know kind of our why, to soul search, to find your purpose, to find something that you really believe in and you're passionate about, and to create and strive for change in that, or to help it. I think that this is a time where we can really dive deep and grow as people. I'd say some of the things that have helped me recover and helped me throughout that time were my family and friends and support staff. I would not be the person I am today without them in my life, and their constant support was huge. But I think some of the best part about it was that they're just themselves. You don't have to act like someone you're not, especially in even tough situations. Just be yourself. And that was one of the things I really valued in it, was having my friends be there for me, my family be there, but they weren't anything different. They're just themselves, and they were supporting me throughout this time. And if you don't have those friends in your life, find some friends, make some friends on campus. I've been fortunate enough to have friends from all different parts of the world, I guess. I have some in China, some in Vietnam, some in India, just from being a student at York University. And I think that I could even rely on them if I wanted to. But our varsity student athlete body has amazing people in it, and have been super helpful in my recovery, but also as a friendship too. And lastly, I think talking to someone about it too, to be open, be vulnerable, and express how you're feeling to people, and it will help you too. But I've been fortunate to have that support, and we all as varsity athletes have that support through Debbie. And there's nothing wrong with opening up about that too. I think us struggling is completely common. I've struggled too. We've all struggled as student athletes, and that's completely okay. and something that we can learn from and grow. And right now is definitely that time for us to grow and to become even better than we were before, and to use this time as a stepping stone. So some of the things I'd like to do, I guess, in the mornings, have a gratitude journal. So when I wake up, I write down 3 things. I do my journal on my phone. It's not really, I don't write that much, but I do it on my phone. I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And this morning I wrote down, I'm grateful for the opportunity to pursue my education. I'm in my last week of my undergraduate studies. So that was one of the things, is that I'm so thankful I could pursue my education throughout this pandemic, and that I had a roof over my head, and that I was going to be able to babysit my dog today. And those were my 3 things I was grateful for. And they're pretty minor, but like they are big, I think, too, because we have so many things in life that we get distracted by or we get stressed over. And just to ground yourself and to really find something that you're grateful for. And I was even grateful for this opportunity today to be with everyone and to create our family while we have this time. So um, definitely a lot to be grateful for. And hopefully this answers a bit of your question. I could go on a tangent some more to explain some other stuff that I do, but I think that this will definitely help provide you. I guess lastly, I stayed away from alcohol, drugs, and had good sleep patterns. And that was another big thing in my process of recovery with the head injury, was that I was on a good schedule. I tried doing lots of different situations and things that are maybe not normal for people. I'd have a green drink every day. I'd nap in the afternoons. I'm not really a big napper, but I had to do that because I wanted to heal and be the best version of myself. So hopefully that answers the question and could take some nuggets from it.
I think it does. Thank you. Thank you for answering that. It sort of leads to a question that Tom put in the chat, which is, what are you doing now? And so practicing gratitude is a piece of your daily life, which is fantastic, and something, I keep meaning to do, and it just skips every day. But Tom asks, what are you doing now? Work, sports, charity, leisure, extracurricular activities. Now, I know you're about to enter exam season, so I hope studying is on the list, but what else keeps you busy?
Yeah, so studying is definitely number 1 on my list right now. I have 2 finals coming up on Saturday and Sunday that are supposed to be the hardest of my degree. So I'm really prepping for that. I've been prepping for the last 2 weeks already. So hopefully they're okay. I shouldn't have too many issues with passing, but I want to maintain academic all Canadian honors. So going to be grinding for that. And leisurely, I do tons of stuff. I love listening to music. I absolutely enjoy working out. I try to work out at least 3, I don't know if not more, right now 3 while I'm studying, but before 5 times a week, and do some stick handling practice. I still love the game, even though I'm not cleared to play. And it's good for my hand-eye coordination and just fun, something that I find value in. I also enjoy spending time with my family and having suppers with them. I know it's a small thing, but for me, it's really big because I get that quality time with them. I get to really enjoy it and get to actually talk to them, hear about their day. My dad just started a new job today at a new facility in Saskatoon, manager of a care home. And so it's super exciting just to see them in their life too, and how it's changing. And also, I guess, with my dog, love to take him on walks, and been doing that quite often too. I think, especially since we're all locked in at home, it's nice for me to get outside and just enjoy the fresh air. I've always been a big guy about nature and enjoyed it. So this is a great aspect in my life, to walk with him and to keep him quiet from not barking. But I really think that there's lots of things. And then on the, I guess, community side, I've had to take kind of a stop right now with everything going on, just due to school and the book. The book has taken over my life. I'm not going to lie. It has been pretty crazy and chaotic. And so I've planning on starting that up though after this week here. I want to call my diabetes personally, and then have our virtual kind of get together. We do a quarterly get together on Zoom. And so that would be one of the things that I really enjoy and excited to do. And then hopefully be a part of the next BIVSA meeting coming up on April 13th, I believe. And so that'd be tomorrow, right? Yeah, tomorrow. And then afterwards, I'm not too sure. The summer's gonna be pretty chaotic, and there's quite a few things I'm doing. I have quite a few school events for Q&A about the book. Normally, schools will read a book or a classroom, and then I'll do a Q&A at their school. And so I have quite a few events with that. I have quite a few speaking engagements, events coming up here. Lots of the diabetic community as we ramp up for JRF in June. So I'm definitely going to be busy. And then lastly, I guess this past weekend, I did my interview for Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College. And it was definitely a challenge. So if anyone plans to to apply for Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College, they do an interview that is virtual. And it's literally just you looking at your computer and talking. And there's no interaction with anybody else. It's just you answering a question while looking at your computer. So that was difficult for me as a person, but I've had some practice with this now through the Zoom world and through speaking engagements. So I think it went okay. We'll see. And I will plan on doing a couple self-study courses this summer through that to better myself as a chiropractic student.
Awesome. Sounds
Oh.
like that.
I
Sounds like
wanna-
there's a lot of, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll add a couple more things. I also like to golf. I'm big on golfing and rollerblading. So I'll be doing that this summer too. I try to stay active and healthy. So I got a golf membership and I'm actually at my first round on Monday. So next Monday. So super excited for it. And rollerblades will be coming out when the weather permits.
Yeah, it was already rollerblading weather in Toronto. So you're good. I want to ask, we're nearing the end of our Q&A. And so for those of you who have questions, please feel free to either raise your hand. If you don't know how to use the raise hand button, feel free to kind of go like this and, go the old school way, and we will be able to call upon you to ask a question as we wrap up the Q&A portion. One question, and I got to ask because I'm a dog person too, is what kind of dog do you have and what's their name?
Oh, that's a great question. So we have a golden doodle a petite golden doodle named Murphy. And it's my parents' dog. And I got it for them because they've dealt with me moving away from home for how long now? Since I was, 16. I haven't lived at home. The last time I lived at my home during this time of the year was when I was 15. So they've definitely had experience loneliness without a little dog, and they'd come to all my games. But once I moved to Toronto, they couldn't come to our games or even come visit. So I thought that giving them a dog would provide a little sense of, healing from the crash, and also a sense of love and support towards something that they value. And so they love dogs, and we love dogs. I'm a big dog guy. And so that was one of their things I got for them, was a little dog. So
That's great. So speaking of parents, as a parent myself, what advice, we've got a number of alumni watching who are perhaps, raising kids and wondering, what advice do you have for parents about how to instill that kind of sort of sense of values, integrity, resilience? What advice do you have for us?
That's a good question. I'd say from a very young age, I was definitely focused on those values of respecting others, treating others how you want to be treated. I was placed in different situations too that challenged me and made me grow as a person. Like I said, both my parents are in the health industry, and my dad managed a care home in Moose Jaw, and my mom was a nurse there. And they brought me in to play with the residents and to actually play board games, puzzles, to interact with them at a very young age. And that was kind of where I learned about giving back and how to accept anyone based on any race, color, background, ability. So for me, that was one of the big things I took away as a young kid and wanted to continue on, was to give back. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend having a child have type 1 diabetes, but I also say that helped me become more mature and truly made me ahead of my peers and friends in aspects of body awareness and learning about health and how important it is what you put in your body. So I want to say those are a couple things that really helped. And lastly, is just they treated me like a normal child. They didn't baby me. They didn't want me to become a spoiled only child. They wanted me to have values and to work hard for what I earn. And I've had to work hard for what I've earned my entire life. And especially now with school, it's twice as hard for me as it was before the crash based on my brain injury. But I just have to work double the amount of hours than I used to. And I'm okay with that because in the long run, it's going to pay off. So I think just the work ethic has come naturally from them, but it's also because they carried these values too, and this is how they acted. So one of the big things is that your children look up to you and emulate the way that you treat others, the way that you carry yourself as a person, and the way that you move on throughout life. And so for me, I've had great role models in my entire life through coaches, teammates, family, friends, and they've helped me become the person I am today.
Thanks. I want to read a couple of the comments that are coming in the chat, because I don't know that you could necessarily enter questions. So I'm just going to read a couple because they're really important. So from Jolene, Jolene writes, I'm a York U grad watching from my home in Saskatoon, the best of worlds. Thank you for sharing your story, Kaleb. The Stars home lottery went live in Saskatchewan today, and I'll be buying a ticket in your honor. I appreciate you promoting the critical work Stars does.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. STARS is definitely major. And the hard part about it for me was that I never learned about them until after the crash when I needed them. And that was very difficult for me to come to terms with, was that how come I never knew about this service beforehand? And why has there not been enough awareness for me to understand what they do and their impact they have on people? And so that is one of the goals, is to help them along with this process and to shine a light. So thank you for your comment. It's awesome to hear that you're in Saskatoon and a York alumni. Small world for sure.
Sure. Okay, I think there's a hand up, and I think it's Bill. Bill, if you have a question, over to you.
Oh,
just press unmute yourself so that we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, good. Kaleb, we're very pleased to be part of this today. My wife and I went out and bought 8 copies of your book to send along to family and friends. We were so enamored by the whole story. My last name is Sondercook, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see that you won my brother's award. You are the 44th recipient of that award, and I've had the luxury of going to many sports banquets to present that trophy to the individual recipient. I didn't get that opportunity with you, but maybe we'll get a chance to meet you in the future. But my question is, your coach obviously thought that you met the criteria for the trophy. Can you tell us a little bit today about your role as a team member this year?
Wow. Thank you so much. And it's an honor to talk to you, Bill. And the award was an absolute honor to receive. So thank you for that. And thank you for the support too with the book. I'm glad that it touched you. It really means the world to me. So for me, this year was definitely a harder one than normal, because most of the time we are in person. And so I try to lead by example in person, but this year was through virtual format. And some of the things I did this year was help with our recruiting aspect for the York Lions men's hockey team. I've done that for the past 2 years, and I've been really involved in that aspect and really putting my whole heart and soul into helping the future Lions become better, and with great people, great players, and great students. So that was one of the things I did. I was also a part of our student council, and I was a representative on our team. Alex Mowbray and myself did quite a bit of persuading guys to join in. It was hard because of the video format this year to get people really engaged, but I think that we were able to do that and came out even as better people for doing those type of situations and things. And also try to be a support and active at our team meetings. I try to be at every single team meeting and have my video on and talking, and really trying to get the guys talking and conversing more too. And I guess lastly, Snapchat. We have a team group chat on Snapchat, and even our actual Lions group chat on text. And so we try to chime in there, and I've tried to really be a vocal point to keep us connected in these times, but also to find a way to battle throughout it too, and to become better people. So I attribute that to my coach though. Our coach, Russ Harrington, has been incredible with this time and trying to better ourselves off the ice too, and to make us grow as individuals, because hockey only lasts for a certain amount of years, or even sport, and that the real world is going to eventually come in our lives at some point. We may be 30 or 40, but hockey won't always be there. And so I think one of the big things was really digging in deep and find the other stuff that we value in life and how we can use it moving forward.
Thank you. My grandson's listening in, and he's just starting his hockey career.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And thank you so much for the question. And like I said, I'm absolutely honored that I was able to represent your brother on this award.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, so we are running out of time and want to let everyone go back to what they are busy with. I want to read out just a couple more messages that are coming in through the chat because they keep flowing. Norma Sue says, thank you, Kaleb, for your positivity and inspiring messages. People are reminiscing about their days in the 80s and 90s as a yeoman, and now they're yeoman and lions. Alyssa says, I really appreciate you putting yourself in our vulnerable spot and sharing your story. It really inspires me. Your advice on focusing on what you can control is exactly what I needed to hear right now, and it goes a long way. Thank you, Kaleb. I wish you the best in your final courses this semester. And a final one that I'll read from Chrissy is, I'm a York grad from the 90s. I played on the York b-ball team. I followed your journey on Insta and I'm so proud of where you are now. I am a mom of an 8-year-old, although I'm old enough to be your mom. And then a face that kind of goes like this. I hope my son can learn even just part of your strengths. So many mature and wonderful values you display. So thank you so much. I'd like to call upon Haley at this point, who has a few words that she'd like to share.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. So Kaleb, I just want to say that you talk about being the best version of yourself. But you help bring out the best version in everybody. Those on this call, those that aren't. So I thank you to the alumni, current student athletes. I see so many of our current coaches on this call. Thank you for joining, staff, faculty. It's just so amazing to bring our York community together to celebrate such an amazing young person. I would also like to thank Mo and Bivsa for your role today. Tara, who's our Sport Council president, and Frankie, who asked our second question, is our vice president of Sport Council. I see so many Ola and so many other amazing student athletes on the call supporting our Lions, and it's great to see again that family support that Kaleb talks about. Alyson, I'd like to thank your team through Alumni Advancement for all of the work and help and back and forth we've gone through over the past few weeks of planning. I'd like to thank Jen, my boss, but more importantly, I'd like to thank Russ and our men's hockey program. Tara talked a little bit about the cross acronyms, and it means so much to our program in men's hockey, but also through all of RC athletics and through athletics and recreation, that our coaches, all of our coaches go out of their way to recruit young people such as Kaleb. We often talk about, we want our Lions to be champions in the classroom, in the community, and also on the field of play. And Kaleb, you embody all of those pieces. So Kaleb, I want to thank you for allowing us to celebrate you today. We remember Mark, we remember the 16 lives that were lost, but Jen hit the nail on the head earlier when she said that our family was allowed to heal by having the joy of having you join us. I really look forward to your transition now into a proud alumni, but one thing remains true, and you can see it with all the red on this call today, that once you're lying forever. So please don't forget that. The strength that you embody to be able to be so vulnerable and share your story. I'm not sure if many people have told you, but by you being the best version of yourself, you allow others to do the same. So please keep telling your story, please keep pushing, and please continue to wear our Lions logo with pride. Jen and Tara shared some thoughts and details about your life before you joined us. Tara shared some of the highlights of your time here with us, but what I remember of you, Kaleb, is working with our youth in the community, showing up at Heroes Hockey early before practice, staying after practice, cheering on your teammates, and always being that positive sounding board. We're going to miss seeing it every day on campus, but we know that you're here in spirit and in soul as you continue on in all your future endeavors. So thank you so much for choosing us. As much as we promised you a scholarship and all these other pieces, you still chose us, and that means the world to everybody that's involved. We're excited to see what's next. To everybody who's on the call, I do encourage you to purchase Crossroads if you have not done so already. Follow in Bill's footstep. You can buy more than one for sure. I know I purchased mine on Amazon and I got a notice that they were actually sold out. So I had to go to the local store here, which is an amazing problem to have, Kaleb, for bringing attention not only to your life, to diabetes, to the 16 lives that were taken too early, but also to STARS. On behalf of all of us here, near and far, alumni, staff, student athletes, coaches, Kaleb, thank you for being you. Thank you for choosing us, and thank you for repping your Lions logo with pride. Kaleb, over to you now for the final remarks, and thank you everybody for joining us. It's been our pleasure to host this event.
Thank you so much for the kind words. My goodness. I honestly don't think I deserve all this love and support, and it's just because I am who I am, and I really don't. Yeah, I'm speechless. So thank you. That's all I can really say is just thank you very much for believing in me and giving me this opportunity to be a lion and to spread my light and hopefully to just create bonds with everyone that I'll have for the rest of my life. I am so proud to call myself a lion, and this photo here that you can see in the back, it really just means a lot to me. I obviously it's cut off because I wasn't able to actually crop it properly, but it really kind of goes to show that's a full circle and that um, I wanted to create my own legacy in this time, but also honor Mark's legacy. And I have the biggest smile on my face in this picture because it's always a wonderful time to be a lion. And there's nothing more valuable than that for me is the opportunity to succeed. And you guys have presented me with every opportunity to do that. And so thank you for giving me everything and how and making me the person I am today. It truly means the world, and I'll forever be grateful to be a lion. And I also just want to say thank you for everyone coming and taking time out of your busy day and schedules to be here. I know right now people are supposed to be back at work probably, and the fact there's still 55 people here is crazy. So thank you for making time on your busy day to be here. And lastly, thank you for all the support in my life. I seriously would not be the person I am today. And if it wasn't for you guys being here. And so thank you for continuing to support me and giving me all your love. It's truly something that I'm grateful for. Yes, thank you. I'm gonna get emotional here, but I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, it's always so awkward when it's a Zoom event, but we're going to close the Zoom. So let's all give a wave and send some virtual Lions hugs, and we congratulate you and wish you nothing but good health to everyone that's here. Be well, be strong, go Lions.
Thank you.